Welcome to Centre Court for another week, all thanks to TAC. I'm so excited because I have a friend in the studio. Ash Brazel, you're out of home quarantine and you're allowed out.
See, I'm back on the table. I've missed it. I've missed you. It's so good to be back. Wow, it feels like it's been forever.
I know, and we had two pretty incredible semi-finals as well that we got to watch. And hope you're all going okay in a lockdown wherever you are in Australia. Fingers crossed that we are all out of this very soon. We do have a guest for you today, and you know who it is because you're all on Twitter following along with the show. So Sophie Garbin will be joining us very shortly, and thank you for sending in your questions. So always remember at Centre Court Show to tag us in and hashtag Centre Court Netball to join in the conversation. We certainly do love watching the socials, especially during the games on the weekend. Some of the funniest content that we get to see, and I know you've got some faves that you're going to show us later.
I can't wait to show you, B, but there was a lot.
All right, let's get straight to our guests. It's now time for the agenda, thanks to TAC. Make safety features a priority in your next car. Visit howsafeisyourcar.com.au. Well, joining us all the way from sunny Queensland and who is now in the grand final for the 2021 season, Sophie Garbin from the New South Wales Swifts. Oh, you're in the car, are you?
Just finished training, so yeah, on my way home. Well, not on my way home because I'm not driving, but just about to head back and get some lunch and then rest up.
Where are your teammates? Or do you just have a car by yourself?
We have so many cars, which is like a bit ridiculous because we're not actually allowed to do anything really or go far. So we have a lot of cars just driving around wasting a lot of fuel. But no, I've offloaded the teammates. I said if Maddie Proud was here, we probably wouldn't be able to get a word in.
Yeah, that's why we've banned her from being able to come into the car because this is about you, not about her. Can you give us a bit of an indication of just how the team's feeling? The fact that you had that incredible win over the Giants and now that you've got yourselves through to another grand final.
Oh, it's a bit surreal. After the game on the weekend, we went back to the team room and just had a bit of a celebration. Just because I think last time we won, it was so tough, and I think we were so focused on the actual end result of winning the grand final. So we're just trying to enjoy all the little wins on the way because we know that these it doesn't come around often, and we know now how hard it is to get to an actual grand final. So I think everyone's just celebrating the fact that we're there, and just looking at each day at a time because we've got such a long break until we actually get to the game. So
yeah, and mentioning the grand final, like the last time you won, is the year the same? Like, is it the same kind of vibe? Is it different? Tell me about the two different years.
Yeah, I think it's completely different. I think both years had their struggles. In 2019, we had a lot of injuries. Like we didn't have Maddie Proud. There was lots of ups and downs. I think this year's been the same in terms of lots of ups and downs and a lot of obstacles and challenges. But I think the vibe is a little bit the same, but a little bit different as well. I think, it's a lot of excitement, but we are getting some of those same feelings and the same stuff coming around that happened in 2019. But it is very different.
And you're certainly used to winning away because you won that grand final in 2019 in Brisbane by about 17 goals. So I'm sure it's no issue for the Swifts up there to be playing an away grand final as such, even though you've earned a home one. I've been really fascinated, Soph, in your season, you individually, but also as a team. And as a commentator, I get to listen into your huddles all the time. Some of it goes to air, some of it doesn't. And one thing that I love hearing is a lot of the time you in the huddles are saying things like, come on guys, like momentum doesn't exist. And we're hearing words like that, and we hear a lot about mindset. And I want you to take a listen to what your coach, Bryony Akel, said yesterday on radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we had a few hiccups in the beginning, and we decided that, every time we had that call from Netball Australia to tell us, you've got to pack your bag, you've got 2 hours to move, we basically sat in a room and decided that we just got to work with it and just have agile thinking and to get on with it. And if you spend your time sitting in that negative space of poor us and, we've got to move again, there's way worse off people than us, going through this COVID battle. And we thought, let's just go with it. And, to have a super strong mindset about it has definitely helped our team towards these final series.
See, there you go, the mindset again. And we know netball's a physical game, but it seems like as a team, you're spending a lot of time on your mental preparation as well.
Yeah, I think in SSN, all teams are so even. Like you see this year, like Magpies smashed us just before just before going into finals. They didn't even make finals. We lost to T-Birds, a team that's not in finals. And I think in the past, there's been teams that you'd probably flog by 20 goals and they wouldn't really get a chance. But this year it's been so even, and I just think the whole competition is so even that you're not going to get that much physical gains over each team. So I think it comes down to the mental side of things, and I think we've had a big focus on that the past couple of years, and I think that's what got us into that first grand final, that stuff off the court that we did. And I think just moving forward, I think Bryony's always been about that, just talking to lots of different people. She's all about getting stuff off different coaches and trying to improve her game as well. So I think just trying to find those little 1%ers that we can get over the other teams. I think is the key to it, hopefully.
And so if you talk about it being a mental battle, and it's also be about COVID, you've talked about being in 4 different states. What's that like? Does the team get closer? After a win, after a loss, you're always together. You don't really have your own time. How's that been mentally? Yeah,
I think because we're quite used to it in Sydney. I remember coming back from the hub last year and I was like, how's the hub? And I was like, well, I'm always away from my family living in Sydney. So a lot of us are in that hub environment when we are at home in Sydney, because a lot of us are away from home in the first place. So I think the fact that we've already been in that environment before entering this sort of hub has helped a lot. But we are always around each other, and it does probably get hard, but we're lucky enough we've got our own rooms this year, which is quite nice. Although me and Maddie Proud always say, I'm so glad we've got our own rooms, but I'll be saying it, and she's in my room having a cup of tea every night watching Love Island with me, so we don't get away with it from each other that much. But it's definitely a challenge, but I think it does help, and I think we're quite lucky that we are all quite close off court as well.
Yeah, you can certainly tell that, and I reckon every other team in the league, Braz has said it to me before, just how close you look as a group. It looks like off the court you have fun. We saw in the doco last year how devastated you all were when you lost in the final series, but just how much you actually have each other's back, and that's always crucial to a successful team. So it's so great to see that from afar anyway, and to hear that you are saying it's exactly like that on the inside. One thing we like to do, Soph, on centre court is throw it out to our Twitter family to see if they've got any questions, and they sure did. So we're going to start off with this one from Zara. When do you find out the starting 7? Is it the night before or right before the match? I know teams do this very differently. What does it happen in the Swifts?
We have done it differently this season. At the start of it depends how Bryony's feeling on the day, actually. Normally, traditionally, we would get told at captain's run. But
which is the day before?
Yeah, day before.
Yeah.
But this year, she's just been telling us on the day. When I started against T-Bird, she told me the day before just to give me a bit of prep. But I think she's trying to take away the stigma around the starting 7, because the rolling subs are used so much. So, yeah.
And talking about rolling subs, we've got this question here from Taylor. And this is an interesting one for someone who doesn't play at the elite game. We've seen you come on and off at different times. How do you go about changing your game from a goal attack to a goal shooter? Or do you just focus on the same strength? It doesn't matter what position you're out there playing.
I think I have to change it up a fair bit, because my game as a shooter is such a holding game. So I do still have to move, especially if I'm in there and Sammy's under the post. I've got to be that mover. So I do try to change it up a little bit, but still bring those strengths of my hold and my strength in the air as well.
Now, this next one is from Taurus Energy. How do you prepare during a game when you're not sure if you're going to be in the starting 7 or not?
I still prepare exactly the same. So I like to have a good breakfast and stuff like that, and still prepare like I am going to play, because you never know what could happen. Last year in the hub, actually, Helen was vomiting literally 5 minutes before the game. Oh, no. So I ended up playing a whole game at goal attack. So I just prepare the same as if I was playing. And that's, just and even if I don't come on in the first half of the game, just staying really close in huddles and stuff like that, just making sure I know what's going on and know what happens if I do have to come on court, know what I need to do.
And our last question from our Twitter family, this one is from M. Do you feel pressure coming on as an impact player, or do you feel like you get the benefit of watching your opposition's defence before you get to go out there on court? I know as a past player, we're always told, weren't we, if you're on the bench, sit there, watch, see what you could do, see how you could have an impact. Is that how you prepare?
I think there's definitely pressure coming onto the court at any time. I like to think, though, when you're coming on, it's to make an impact. So the other team should be a little bit scared when I do come on. But there's obviously pressure every time I step out on the court. But I just try to make sure I stay in the game and watching what's going on. So when I come on, I can make that impact.
I can back that up, B, because when I'm playing, I can hear Sophie, if she's not on the court, cheering and yelling like on the sideline. And I've said it before to you, I've said it before to the people on our show. The Swifts, their culture, the way they are on the bench, the way they support each other, the way they are on court, for me is like what I inspire to be, because I'm hoping it is what it is from the outside in, because it's so nice to watch. And one good thing about being in the hub is we all got to train at this one court, but everyone had their own court. And you could always hear the Swifts giggling and laughing. Even when they were doing sprints, like they were still smiling. And I'm like, something's wrong with this team. Like the fact that they're still smiling and sprinting. And I know Soph back from WA, and I think should be a massive influence on the culture. But Soph, is there anyone else in the team that you think really drives the culture? Because it's from the outside in, and from another team looking in, it looks really beautiful, and it's something that you want to be a part of. So is it just you, or is there other people as well driving that?
Oh, it's just all me.
I thought the show. That's what I wanted.
I think when Bryony first came in, she really set that standard, and I think she just is so comfortable with us all and has made us feel like it's a home and it's a family. So I think it's really driven from her down.
And how was it actually having having that time when Bryony wasn't able to actually be there as a coach? Was that one of the strangest times you've had as a player?
It was very strange. I think it was the Magpies game. That's why we lost the Magpies game.
Of course.
She was on Zoom.
Just remember that game. It was a good game.
It was a great game if you played for Magpies. It was very strange. But because it was during that time when I think Queensland was actually in lockdown anyway, so we weren't able to see each other anyway. We were quite restricted as to what we could do. So I don't know. Again, don't watch this, Bryony, but we didn't even notice.
And what is the team planning on doing watching the preliminary final between the Giants and Fever? Do you have something planned? Will you all watch it together, or will you all watch it separately?
I actually heard a secret today that I hope none of my other teammates watch this, but I think Sam Wallace is cooking us a bit of a feast to watch it together. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that is always the most fun, I think, when you go straight through to a grand final, that you get that preliminary final, you watch it together, you have a bit of a laugh and a giggle, and it's just all part of the process of, right, once you find out, okay, who are we playing? And then the next week kind of kicks off and it breaks up that momentum of having 2 weeks off. So I think it's a good thing to do as a team all together. Do you care who you play? I know you're probably not going to tell us either way, but do you care who comes to the grand final?
Well, if Fever come, I'll probably get to holiday with Jess after before we head into Diamond stuff if that's happening. So, but
already thinking about off season.
Both teams. We were saying this the other day. Both teams are just as hard. So, I don't know.
Last question: is Sam Wallace a good cook? The fact that she's cooking up the meal for the game.
The pressure.
Yeah. Like, that's a big thing. I just expect popcorn and chocolate, but what are you expecting on the menu?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm the team head chef, but Sam has a special chicken wing recipe that is very popular within the Swifts.
Gee, you take on a huge role, like head of culture, head of
cooking,
the chef,
head of social committee,
head of social committee. Like, whoa! Like, Sophie, you play a really huge role in that team. I hope you get your rest at night.
Do you want to play for Magpies next year? Because it sounds like you're the complete package.
And actually, just before we let you go, we knew last year it was a huge thing for the Melbourne Vixens to know that they were playing on behalf of the entire Melbourne, who was going through a really hard time. Now, unfortunately, we know that New South Wales is going through a tough time and it doesn't look like it's getting better anytime soon. Do you feel that also, I guess, not pressure, but just that real want to be able to bring some joy to everybody in New South Wales?
Yeah, definitely. We were absolutely devastated when all the Saturday netball finished up in Sydney and got told they couldn't play, and their state age got cancelled again this year. So we're absolutely devastated for them. So yeah, we're just so excited. We've got so many messages from back home and we can feel all your support, Sydney siders. So yeah, we're definitely going to be playing for them.
Oh, well, I just cannot wait to watch in the grand final, not just you personally, Soph, your team, but also all the jobs that you have. I'm really going to keep a close eye on you from now on. But all the best over the next few weeks, and we really hope that it's an exciting game in the grand final. I don't even know who I want to win, but I definitely know that the Swifts, you guys have had a very good season and certainly deserve to be there. So thank you so much for joining us on Centre Court, and maybe if you do win, we'll get you back on to celebrate.
Thanks,
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have such access to this year's grand finalists, and thanks again to Sophie Garbin for joining us. Well, that was the agenda. Thanks to TAC. How safe is your car? It's now time to get to the nitty gritty. Thanks to Lexus of Berwick, your hybrid destination of choice. Visit lexusofberwick.com.au. Braz, this is where we absolutely pick apart the preliminary final, and we know the Giants are taking on the West Coast Fever, and it's been pretty even matchup between these two teams over the last two seasons. They're head-to-head, they're two apiece, and then when you look at the last game they played, now this is a pretty important round 14 game for both teams, and Giants managed to get the win. It was 75-73 against Fever. It was probably not a result I expected. Was it one that you did?
Not at all. And to be honest, I actually don't reckon anyone expected it. And the way Giants play, we've talked about it. I'm sure everyone knows it. But Fever just go with Janelle with a shot. You know, she's getting 58, 60 plus goals a game when they play Giants. But you look at Jo Harton, she's only getting half of that because she knows Sophie Dwyer's going to get the other half. So I don't know what it is. I love watching it because it's so physical.
Yes.
You don't know who's going to get called. Half the time the umpires actually let it go because just so that the game can continue. But I absolutely love watching it, and I love that these two teams are coming up because, in my opinion, I only think Giants are the only team that can challenge Fever.
Ooh, that is an interesting point that you do make. And keep in mind too, the last time these two teams played in Perth and in Queensland, April Brownlee wasn't there for either game. Last time she'd left quarantine, that was when the Giants lost by 1 over in Perth. She'd left and gone back to Sydney and didn't realise, you know, obviously she had Clay with her. And they lost by 1. It was a very close game, went right down to the wire, and a very physical game. I know there was a lot of chat about Jamie Lee Price and the way she was playing that game. And then she had conversations after that saying, hey, like, look at both players, don't just look at me. But we know both teams really step up. They are both physical sides, and I know there's a lot of discussion around Fever, and maybe like they don't get as many penalties either. But both teams love to contest every single ball. So
yeah, you bring up April Brownlee, and that's a really good point, B, because last time when I saw April was out, I was like, no, they're out. Like,
no chance.
No chance at all. She didn't play that game. Last time they played them, you said that was the last time. The time before that, it was only a 1 point difference Fever's way, though. April still wasn't there. So it is close. So do you reckon Julie's sitting back going, I've got a secret weapon, I've got April coming in, or do you sit April off for the first quarter, backing in the team that can actually take down Fever?
Well, that is a big call, just letting April have a bit of a rest for the game and seeing what happens. You definitely have to have her out there on court if she's ready to go. She obviously played last weekend, so I think put her out there, get your best team out there.
She's on fire. She's on fire at the moment. You wouldn't not play her, but I just, I'm putting it to you. It would be interesting. And it's Julie. She is tricky. She likes changing things up. It'd be interesting.
And the Giants had a great game, didn't they? It wasn't like the Swifts had a massive win over them. It was such a close game on the weekend. The Giants are in great form. So if they're ever going to take it to Fever again, it will be in this moment. And I thought, let's concentrate on our matchups. And the matchup that I am looking forward to the most is the two young guns from both teams, Sophie Dwyer and Sunday Ariang. And for me, these two players have really stood up in season 2021. We saw glimpses, especially of Sunday Ariang in the final series last season, and we knew that she was going to be a really special player. She's gone straight into the Australian Diamond squad. We know Sophie Dwyer is an invitee. What I like, though, is the way these two players, they play without, I guess, all the burden of the rules and team structure around them. They're still learning, and they go out there and they play on their instinct, and I really value that in young players. I think that adds so much to their games. One thing, though, I think both of them need to be very mindful of is those big moments where they need to be, whether it's Sunday, she needs to be in that tight one-on-one defence and not necessarily floating off. And for Sophie, when she's actually taking in those drives and being strong and pulling in that ball and actually putting up the shots and not hesitating. I think both players have crucial roles to play in this. And for both of them too, they need to play within their team environment. So you can do as much as you like and get all the stats that you want, but it's really crucial, I think, that Sunday partners really well with Courtney Bruce, because Courtney Bruce is going to have her hands full with Jo Harten. And if they can form a really solid combination, working together, backing each other up, talking to each other, that will really allow them to contest more ball and put more pressure on the Giants in the attack end. And same goes for Harten and Dwyer. If they can actually have the ball moving around, using their triangles, actually having that pace on the ball, it's going to be a lot harder for Ariang and Courtney Bruce to get their hands to it. That's why I'm so excited, because anything can happen down that end of the court.
The excitement overload is just unbelievable, babe. But you make a really good point with having the two leaders sitting back in the circle, because you talk about the communication that Bruce needs for Sunday Ariang. But Jo Harten does exactly the same thing, and you did mention that. But you can't pick it up on TV, but on court, being a player, when you're playing against both of them, the amount of conversation, and you're expecting it from a defence end. You're expecting Courtney to talk to Sunday, and that's just how a defence unit works. You never hear it from the goalers, ever. And if it is, it's just a little high five. But Jo is directing. She is telling where the wing attack where to go. She's telling the goal attack where to go. She's doing these little tricky things. But she is such a key player for this team. And I think you're going to see Sophie Dwyer come into the game if Harten can keep Courtney Bruce busy.
Yes.
And that will only happen if I think she's done all the work up until these finals. She can actually now, she's taught them what to do. She can focus on her own game and keep Courtney busy. That's another, that's not my matchup, V, but that's another exciting one. You've got the starting goalkeeper for Australia with the starting goal shooter for England. Hopefully we see them play against each other internationally this year, but we're going to see it face-to-face here. So I'm very excited for both those matchups.
And they could almost nullify each other, because they're both such great players. Take them both out of the game, and it will come down to what Dwyer and Ariang do against each other, to who's actually could win the game for their team. I mean, we're saying it's going to go down to the wire. I really hope it does. I hope it's a really close prelim, because they're the best games that you often get in a season. Yeah. Who's your matchup?
My matchup is Amy Parmenter and Verity Charles. Going for the mid-court again. I just think both of these two are on fire. Amy Parmenter, for me, is just so informed. One of the best wing defence, if not the best wing defence going around this year. I love the way she plays the game. She's strong, she's physical, she sees ball, she gets ball. And Verity Charles, I used to live with her, B. She's one of my best mates. She's funny. She plays like a street baller. But yeah, I just think this matchup, they could really take each other out of the game. I don't know if they do that, whose positive it will be, because Giants need Parmen to be picking up ball, and Fever need Verity to be feeding ball. And you look at their stats, you've got Verity Charles sitting number 1 in the league with goal assists at 291 for the whole year, which is massive. Especially when you've got a Fowler. And I know this is bad me saying that, but anyone can feed Fowler. She's one of the best athletes in the world. You just got to throw it up in the air and she gets it, But Vez has this connection with her that it doesn't matter where Verity is on court. She just gets the ball and feeds it. And Fowler knows if Vez has got the ball, it's coming in. So I love that. And you look at Parmenter's stats. She is sitting number 6 in the league with intercepts, which is awesome for a wing defence, at 25 intercepts throughout the year and 58 deflections. So it's going to be massive. I feel like it's going to be very physical between these two. And in the end, it's going to come down to who is more mentally strong for me.
Yeah, and Verity Charles, I mean, I did say that sometimes she does go missing in those big games, and credit to her, she really did stand up against the Lightning. I cannot believe the Lightning did not put more pressure and more focus on that connection that she has with Fowler, because, I mean, if you're a goalkeeper and you're trying to come up against Fowler, you need your wing defence, you need your centre to be working their butts off to break that connection the mid-quarters have. So I thought that was probably where Lightning really did come unstuck. They let Verity Charles run all over that court and do what she wanted to do. And then on the flip side, you're right with Amy Parmenter. She played a huge role, not just defensively, but actually bringing the ball out of defence for the Giants in attack. And so Verity, I imagine part of her game will be making sure that she's with Parmenter the whole way down that court, not letting her have a free ball, because she does a huge amount of that transition work out of defence for the Giants.
My last little matchup, this is not...
Okay.
I've brought another little matchup in as well, is Sam Pullman. I don't know what she does, but you've got 3 tall Jamaicans in our league, Romelda Aiken, Symone and Janelle Fowler, obviously. Yes. I don't know what Sam Pullman does, but she gets into all 3 people's heads. And I don't know how she does it. She's a strong body. She fights for the ball after the goal's got in. Maybe it's got something to do with that, just getting in their head and making sure they know they're there. But I just think Sam Pullman as well against Janelle Fowler, she could actually match it with her. I've seen it happen. I know Fowler is a freak of an athlete. She's the best netballer going around. Sam Pullman, big job, but I actually think she can do it.
And it was interesting to see her come on and off the court against the Swifts as well. She wasn't out there permanently, but you're right. She matches up so well on the tall Jamaican players. I expect to see her out there a lot. Whoa, I cannot wait to actually get to this game. We've talked about it a lot, and that was the Nitty Gritty, all thanks to Lexus of Berwick. All right, Braz, it's now time to go to Social Scoop, because there's been a little bit happening on the socials lately. Now, Norma Plummer, interestingly, put up this post. Now, you track this one down. Take us through what you thought of it.
Well, we're Facebook friends, Bianca.
Oh,
so I saw it on the Facebook. I love this tweet because Plum is obviously very excited. We've talked about it before, that netball are trying to get into the Olympics in 2032. She's excited, we're excited, but what Plum doesn't want to see is a fast 5 version of the game. And I totally agree, because you've seen basketball, the 3-on-3.
Yes.
You've seen other games that just change the way the actual traditional game is played, so it fits the Olympic style, where you have men can play it and females can play it. Plum is a big advocate that it does not change.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree. I think that if our sport gets the opportunity to be an Olympic sport, it has to be the traditional version of the game. To be honest, have we seen Fast 5 be successful enough to actually earn that right of being an Olympic Games sport?
You're asking the wrong player.
What? Are you saying
I love
Fast 5?
I don't think it should be in the Olympics, but
Loves
I do
the
think
super shot.
I
Loves
love
Fast
a super shot. I love that I can play centre and just run wherever there is. Like, you can just do whatever you want. No, but it shouldn't. 100% Fast 5 shouldn't be in the Olympics. I've been a part of when it's been in England, when it's been in New Zealand and Australia. It works in England, it works in New Zealand, it does not work in Australia. Our crowd don't like it. The fact that the Olympics are in Australia, I can't see it being Fast 5.
No, and also you think all the countries that do play netball, how many opportunities have they had to play the Fast 5 version? Yeah. You know, a lot of the countries would have only really had the opportunity to play the traditional
I'm excited to see
game.
America play it, because I actually think that'd be pretty good. And at the traditional game.
Absolutely. All right. What else we've been seeing on the socials is that there are some coaches that have been signing up to teams for next year. We know there was no contracts for players, there was no contracts for coaches, there was not even a participation agreement for teams in place. So now we know Kylie Byrne has signed up, and I think this is a great appointment. She has certainly stepped in and taken over the Lightning and just doing an extremely great job. They all seem to love her up there. So congratulations to Kylie. But Braz, any players signed up? What are you hearing?
It's lovely seeing the coaches get signed, isn't it, V? I think it's great. It's great that we're having talks about coaches getting signed, but you can't have a coach without the players, and we're yet to have an agreement where players can get signed. So it's frustrating as a player. I know a lot of players, we're all sticking together, we're all in this together. But in the end, there's been 3 deadlines that have been missed. It's been going on for a long time. there's 5 teams now that have been sitting out, not playing games for the last couple of weeks, waiting, players not knowing if they're going to get a contract next year. If not, are they missing out on job opportunities? If they're teachers, can they go back to work now? There's just so much going on. I think we're all just frustrated. And in the end, on September the 30th, our contracts end. All players throughout the whole league have signed over our image rights to our Players Association. And so from that point on, the league just do not have our image rights. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from the 30th of September.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up. And for those of you at home who might understand, I guess, all the legalities around that, is that generally the league, the clubs will own or have the possibility to utilise the players' images for the promotion of the sport. When you see, they're promoting a game, they use the players' images. Whereas if the contracts do run out without anything in place for you to sign, as of September 30, the Players Association, which is headed up by Catherine Harvey-Williams, the former Diamonds captain, so the Players Association smartly will own all of your image rights. So that if any netball club, whether it's Netball Australia or your own clubs, want to use your images, it's going to have to go through the Players Association. Things get really tricky when contracts expire and that is then put into place. And one thing that you certainly don't want to go down the track, but we have done it before, is one of the hardest times of netball was when the Players Association, we took Netball Australia to Fair Work Commission over our pay rights because we couldn't get anything sorted. It took a long time. It took years of trying to negotiate and get to a point where players were actually remunerated for the time that they were spending away. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in our sport. And Symone McMahon and I headed as representatives from the players at the Players Association, headed to the Fair Work Commission, stood in that courtroom and had to sit against Netball Australia's CEO, which was Kate Palmer at the time, and tell the commissioner what our conditions were, how much we were getting paid every day that we were away with the Australian team. And it was one of the most confronting things that we had to do. And we were both players in the Australian team at that stage. And it's something you don't want to have to do, but it's something that might have to come into play if Netball Australia, the Players Association and all the clubs can't come to an agreement around what it's going to look like next year. So,
and the biggest thing be, and that's what's great. That's what's been great, that we've had people like you, Sherelle, Kath, Liz Ellis, always having our back. Nat Medhurst. There's so many players that gone before us to make the game better. We don't want to go that far, because we don't want our netball name being in the paper for the wrong reason. We want to get this done. The problem is, though, it's got nothing to do with the players at the moment. At the moment, the fight is between Netball Australia and the clubs. So it's got nothing to do with us. We're now just sitting back waiting to know
for what the offer is.
Yeah, what's the offer, and know what are they agreeing to, so then we can actually come in and have a say as well. So it is tough because the players have, I guess, no say in it at the moment. My concern, though, and I don't want to bring up another sport, but my concern is for the future of this sport and losing players to other codes. And I know I'm probably the wrong person to be talking about it because I play both, but AFLW bringing in 4 extra teams, that is so many more positions. That's 30 spots each team. So that is crazy. That there's so many players, I know state league players, that are thinking, well, if I'm not going to get a contract because there's one limited spots, how long does it take to get a contract? You guys don't even know if you've got a contract yet. Our players that probably won't get contracts could look at potentially getting into one of these teams. Where is the gap? Because at the moment, football is just streaming ahead. They're doing everything to make it work. Where netball, I feel like we're just always waiting.
Yes, and you're right, because AFLW, they have quite the knack of not just going out there and finding footballers, they want to go out there and find athletes to recruit. And if you're bringing in 4 new teams, you need to find a whole lot of new athletes and experienced footballers, and there's not going to be that many out there that aren't already signed to teams to fill these new clubs, and they're going to come straight to netball if we are not careful. So Callie Ryan said she wanted, when she started in this job, that she wanted netball to be the #1 female sport in Australia, and this is the time for her to stand and make her mark, because the longer this takes, I think I've got the same fear as you, is that we'll lose a lot of other players, whether it's to jobs that they want to do just so they have that financial security, or whether it's going across to other sports. So let's hope this all gets solved very quickly so that everybody knows where they stand for next year. And another big change that's happening, we just saw on socials as well today, is that Symone McMahon has left the Melbourne Vixens for the first time in like 25 years. She's been a player there, she's been a specialist coach, she's been an assistant coach, she's taken up many roles, and also we know as an assistant coach just recently with the Australian Diamonds too. And she's leaving netball and heading across to Cricket Victoria, where she will be heading up their head of female cricket, which I think is a great high performance opportunity for Sherelle. I think it's a huge gain for cricket. Probably a bit of a loss to netball, but hopefully we're just loaning her across there for a while and we'll get her back eventually.
Not a little loss, B. I was really excited to work with her in the Diamonds. I've never worked with Sherelle. I've spoken to her a few times. I think she's amazing. Would have loved to see her as a coach, but I think the opportunity that she's now got was too good to pass. So wishing her all the best of luck, and hopefully she can find out a few things and send it over to netball.
Okay, Braz, it's been a big show, but we must get to Brazilliant before we finish.
Braziliant's back. For me, I was on Twitter, I was watching the finals games, loved the Swifts game, and then the Swifts put up a tweet. Here it is here. Maddie strikes again. Sorry, couldn't even tweet the last 20 seconds, but basically, Maddie Hay got a turnover, but then Sarah Clow was like, I don't think so, and got one right back. Then the buzzer rang. That just there, for me, describes the game perfectly. I loved it. When I read it, I cracked up laughing because I'm like, that's how I felt. I couldn't imagine what she was like being a fan, being someone that's always tweeting. She couldn't even tweet. That last minute was so intense. But I love that she owned it. She owned how excited she was. So again, congratulations to the Swifts for making the grand final. But Maddie, you've done it all year. So this one goes to you because you had to finish it with a high. I cannot wait for the grand final.
Absolutely. And we'll be watching for that grand final and what you were tweeting along. So thanks so much for Sophie Garbin for joining us. And that was another episode of Centre Court, all thanks to TAC. Make safety features a priority in your next car. Visit howsafeisyourcar.com.au. We'll see you next week.